call Ugly Betty on some level. Wearing the wrong thing, walking face first into a wall of glass, literal or metaphorical, feeling out of place, but knowing you're kind of awesome anyway. When Ugly Betty premiered in September 2006, there was nothing else like it on American TV. What other show could incorporate secret babies, extortion, coming back from the dead, under the desk sexual favors, it's hard saying it, it's hard doing it, backstabbing, affairs galore, and my personal favorite, stealing sperm from a corpse. And what other show would balance it with one of TV's greatest American families, the Suarez family? So much heart, so much bitchiness, 4 seasons of Emmy and Golden Globe winning greatness. Let's get all that greatness out here now. Please welcome the cast and the creator of Ugly Betty, Silvio, Horta. Plana, Indelicato, Jensen. Judith Lights. Romijn. Vanessa. Is not on this panel. So unfortunately, she is under the weather today. So I think that we all need to make a get well soon Becky video. So I'm just gonna do like on 3, feel better Becky. 1, 2, 3. Feel better Becky! So happy to be here. Oh, great. Silvio, I want to start with you. Tell me about the pitch meeting for this show. Tell me about the very beginning.
The very beginning. You know, this is based on a Colombian telenovela. They had been trying to adapt it for a number of years, and it just didn't quite work. And the producers, Ben Silverman and Terry Weinberg, approached me and Selma. And I'm like, how do I make this work for American TV? How do I make a show about the assistant to the editor of a fashion magazine, something that doesn't inherently have a story engine, which is the first thing that, if you're gonna pitch something, everybody asks, what's the engine? So I came up with the brilliant idea of making Betty an FBI agent. And I remember getting on the phone with Ben and Terry, and there's, you know, the typical niceties that are exchanged, and you're great, we love you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, get ready. It's a little different than what you're thinking, but here's the show. Betty is an FBI agent undercover at Mode magazine. And I'm met with just crickets, silence. I said, or maybe not. And they said, look, we think what's there, what was done originally, what worked, and stay with that. Don't shy away from. Don't worry about these, the typical questions that you get asked. What's the drive? What's the end? That will come. Let the characters inform that, and so I did, and thank God I was steered in that direction.
Absolutely. America, when you get the call saying, listen, they want you for this part of Ugly Betty, are you like, really? Does it have to have ugly in front of it?
No. I didn't get a call. I ran into Selma Hayek
as one does.
As one does. In LA, I won't tell you the name of the hotel because that's just too douchey. We were at a hotel, I ran into Selma Hayek, and she ran up to me, and I hadn't heard anything about the show, and she just ran up to me and said, "You are my ugly Betty!" And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'll be whatever you want me to be. And then she pitched me the show. She said, it's this Colombian show, and it's about this girl who looks like a train wreck. I was like, got it, good, I'm here. And she comes into this world of fashion, and she turns everyone else beautiful from the inside out. And I just knew right away that that show had to exist. I knew that little America growing up with so few realistic portrayals of women, beautiful and flawed and just real. I just knew immediately that show was going to exist and that it was going to resound with people. And so from there on out, I was all in. I was 1,000,000% in. And it's funny when people are like, oh, what was it like to play an ugly character? I mean, we never ask men that, We just say, what a great performance. Good for you for taking on the character. I think it's kind of sad when, as a woman, the bravest thing you can do is be ugly. It's like, who cares? And then what? And that's what the show was about. It was about, valuing a person for everything that they have to offer beyond, the surface. So.
And what was the moment for the rest of you, if you could just go down, that you thought, I must play this character, I get this person?
I'll tell you, I knew as soon as I read it that I wanted it, and I wanted it bad. Oh, yeah, I did actually audition for Betty. I did, but every Latin actress in LA and New York, I think, did. But then,
did you see Salma Hayek in a hotel also?
I wish I did. I don't travel in those circles. But then I got called back. Silvio and Salma called me back for Hilda, and so it was just a fight to the death.
Well, I mean, Michael, you were supposed to be like a one-hit wonder on this. I mean, Wilhelmina was going to have a different assistant every week. And it's hard to imagine the show without Mark.
Yeah, my character was supposed to be replaced every episode. She was going to have a new assistant every week because either they quit or were fired or murdered or
This is a myth, and I like it. But let me. There's a truth to it, which is. They only always give us a certain amount of money in a budget for a pilot, and so the way to to get people in that aren't supposed to be regulars is to make them a guest star. So we said, no, he's not going to be a regular, it'll be a guest star, and then we're going to get a new assistant, and that's how we were able to...
I have been telling that story wrong.
I'm just silently nodding, but yes. There was not going to be, once you came in, there was not going to be another assistant, so that's...
How about you,
I'm going to stick to the other story. It's just better for me. It's just better for me.
It's a sexy
it makes me look really good, so I'm going to stick.
Well, one of these stories, when we did do the pilot, we were talking about the original idea of him not being there. is when Wilhelmina gets Botox, and in the rehearsal, Michael came up with the idea, because I gave him a little bit left over, I said, do what you want with it. And he said, how about I tape my eyebrow up? So I have one eyebrow up, that is, do you remember that? And you went inside, you taped and you pitched it, and of course I knew that he was a Juilliard grad, I knew that he was a brilliant actor, and we had so much fun playing, and I knew that we had to have him, so I know, that was amazing.
And you didn't have to,
Now that we know.
you know, you know, to her credit, she was the star. I mean, she was you know, she was the star at the time, and playing a diva, and a diva in her own right, in all the good ways, and none of the bad. Truly, none of the bad. I mean, I stood like none of the bad. And she didn't have to share anything with me. She didn't have to share the screen with me. She didn't have to listen to my stupid ideas and encourage them, and she did. And
But we became as one, and actually, again, in the actual pilot, for instance, he was so brilliant, he started to kind of mimic my movements. And when we do that big conference room scene where Daniel is pitching something, we walk in and flourish, and I go and slink into the chair, and Michael slinked into the chair exactly the same way. And we knew we had something there.
it was good. It was good.
How about the rest of you? I mean, Judith, when you signed on, did you know that your character would start a magazine called Hot Flash?
I would watch.
Hot Flash?
Oh, Hot Flash
Yeah.
magazine. No, that was one of the greatest things that was identical to what I was going through personally. Anyway, I have a very different story because I was not in the pilot, and I had done a pilot about the year before with Silvio. That was a pilot called Sold that took place in Los Angeles, and it was about the real estate market in Los Angeles. And it did not get sold. But Silvio said to me, I promise you that I will find something else for you. And man of his word, they had started the show, and he was apparently looking for some place to put me. And he came up with this character, and I think I came in, was it the middle of when you were guys middle of shooting the first season, or?
Yeah. Episode 6.
Episode 6, and so that was how that happened, and it was for me miraculous and really like one of the greatest things that ever occurred, because when I walked into this family, everyone to a person welcomed me with open arms in a way that I had not experienced in the business before, and it was illuminating and encouraging and really thrilling. And my first scene was with Eric. He came to visit me in the sanitarium. And
I remember that day because it was a split unit crew that went to go shoot you guys, and then they came back to the main stage, and they came back and the whole crew was like, oh my God, Judith Light, Judith Light, Judith Light. And from that day on, you were the star of the show.
thank you, sweetie.
I love that you mentioned that it was like a family, because when I think of the show, I think so much about, and it was even in the words and the writing, there are so many moments of like, this is what family is. And maybe it's, you know, not necessarily, there's a wonderful moment with Michael and Becky, with Mark and Amanda, about being family and about, you know, maybe your birth family isn't who you are, and I think that you all really feel like family toward each other. But I do want to talk about the Suarez family, because who did not want to be in that family? I mean, Ignacio, such a great dad. Hilda is such a great mom. Justin, so ready to sing a show tune on the subway. Sylvia, when you wrote these characters, was there a sense of like, I need to write this amazing Latino family because we don't see that on TV?
You know, I was just driven by, you know, you write what you know. I grew up with a single mom and you know, a sister that was very much, whose name is also Hilda, very much like Hilda, and you know, I wrote a lot of myself in Justin's character, Mark's character. So yeah, it was less about you know, a deliberate, I'm gonna write something that's different for TV, then I wanna write about my own life and experiences.
And Tony, I wanted to ask you about the storyline of Ignacio being undocumented, a storyline, and Silvio, you as well, like it was handled with so much grace, but also with tremendous amount of humor. So tell me about that experience for you.
Well, it was interesting. The previous question was about how we got the part. At first, they wouldn't want to see me. They thought I was too young. I was 54. I could have been 3 times your father, almost. We start young, Latinos. Poppy was pesky. But this was amazing because I walked in. I think it was one of the easiest jobs I've ever gotten. I mean, on the way home, I got the call and there was an offer and boom. And then I was on the show and it was so unexpected and I felt so honored and privileged because I knew about the Latino show, the Spanish show, and I felt, reading the script, I felt a lot of responsibility, you know, for this character to do it right. And also I was challenged by the fact that it was both comedy and, you know, and drama. And so, and also it was very fulfilling that way, for that reason. But it was that episode, I think that was most challenging for me was I still have that speech that I give to my 2 girls on my demo reel. Because I love that speech in the kitchen when I tell you what happened with Mom, etc. And you know, again, it was just, I think we put a face on immigration in a way that no one had done so before.
Mm-hmm. Mark, back when Ugly Betty was on, there weren't a lot of teenage kids on TV who were out back when Justin came out. This is way before Glee. Before a lot of other shows, and it was a beautifully handled storyline over the course of the series. So talk to me about that, and Silvio, if you can also talk about the coming out storyline for Justin.
I mean, we're so fortunate to have the time to tell the story and give the character of Justin this arc that was played out, you know, wasn't rushed, wasn't like, there was a lot of back and forth. There was the times when his dad didn't approve of him initially, where there's the confusion, where he's not accepting of himself. And so to have the opportunity to tell that story and not just get it out and rush it and just humanize the dimensionalizes it, and Mark just brought so many layers to it. I mean, it was, you know, in the pilot he had a small role and he had a couple funny lines, and he nailed those funny lines, but as we kept going, just to have someone who can give all those dimensions is what you want, and he delivered, and it was really beautiful to see.
Thank you. Hi. I think that the best part about playing Justin for me was the fact that we were going through this process at the same time. I was kind of discovering myself and my sexual orientation at the same time that he was, so we really helped each other and guided each other along that road the entire way. And I think that what you see on screen was so personal and so real to me. It wasn't, you know, I don't think that I had the understanding to realize like the impact that story would have on other young people, or on people that, you know, wish that they had a character like that on when they were going through that process. So it wasn't about portraying some groundbreaking young LGBT character. It was about acting a role that I was cast to play, and it just so happened that we were experiencing something quite similar at the same time.
I mean, he was 11 when we started. I think you were 10 when I met you, because you turned 11.
No, I was 11 and then I turned 12.
Oh, that's it. And we were, can I tell?
Yes, you can tell it.
Yeah, tell us.
Just tell it.
Okay.
Just tell it.
Also, we take full credit for raising.
Didn't we do a good job?
We did a good job.
Oh my God, thank you.
He's so fabulous.
No, like you can't even imagine how fabulous he is. But no, I mean it for real. But we were shooting the pilot. It was the first day that the four of us were all together, and we had gone out. We had gone out to lunch. We were in Queens, and we're like, and America was 21 too. She was a baby, and she's like skipping, and she's like, "You guys, this is so fun. You really, I mean, you look like my family. Like, Anna, you look like I just feel like you're my sister, and Mark, you're like my gay nephew." And he just stops in his tracks and goes, "Justin's gay?" And America was like,
Well, it turns out she was right.
I mean, just, you know, Mark and I haven't spoken about it, but as we, you know, the show continued and we're breaking stories and we're coming up with stories for your character, and it was something as the writers were trying to figure out how to delicately deal with this, because we felt like you were going through the same process as a character, and so for me, I know there was an ethical dilemma. Like, I didn't want you to push you in a place that wasn't where you were ready to go, and so it was. We had a lot of conversations about this, but it always felt like you handled everything in an incredibly adult way. It was. I
think that in handling it in a delicate manner, I think that it really complicated and restructured this idea of the coming out narrative, of having it, you know, of having a coming out story be something so kind of intense and almost violent, in a sense of like having to kind of sit the family down and be like, I have to tell you something, as if something's wrong with you. And I think that Justin was the first time that I realized, at least in his coming out story, that I didn't have to say those words in order for it to be understood. You know, I didn't have to say I'm gay in order for it to be implicitly understood. And you know, I think that that's really important. You know, we don't have to tell our parents when we're straight or when we, you know, want to go on a date with a woman, and I don't think that we should have to explicitly sit people down and tell them this story.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this, Marky, but Anna and I, as your mothers, we would just be like, Anna would be like, oh, I want a gay son so bad. And we would be like, oh, we love gays, we're just like overcompensated. And one time, Mark said to Anna, like, if I'm straight, will you guys still love me? Like, we pushed you so far. And so it wasn't so far away from the episode where the Suarez family decides we're gonna give Justin a coming out party. That when he's gonna walk through the door and we're gonna be like, we know you're gay and it's okay! Which just seems like that's just what we did for 4 years, was say that. But honestly, truly, Mark handled that role, and the burden of being a child, 12 years old, with journalists and photographers who are so terrible, yelling at him, asking him questions that you would never ask a 12-year-old. And he just took it with such grace, and you know, you can never look back and know for yourself what you represented at that time, but you did magical work with what you were given. So special.
And of the many fine pairings of characters, I feel like so many people, there were likely and unlikely pairings. I love with Michael and Mark with putting them together, and I love the line when character Mark, talks about Justin being recently hatched from the gay egg. Which is one of my favorite moments, and what a great dynamic about, like, let me tell you how it's done.
And that was a dynamic that they started early on. I think Mark and Justin first met in episode 4. They didn't shy away from that dynamic, which hadn't really been on TV before, and they let it grow for 4 years. You know, we would have interactions peppered throughout the entire series, and I think it was brilliant that they started early and continued often in putting those two characters together.
Rebecca, I mean, you were one of the first, if not the first, trans character on network TV. The first. I mean, no biggie in 2016. In 2006, I mean, tell me about that.
Well, I was also not there at the beginning. They had laid the pipe for this great mystery character who showed up in what, episode 9 of the first season?
13.
13? Okay. And they called me and asked me if I'd be interested. I didn't hesitate for a second. I thought it sounded amazing. And yeah, I mean, it hadn't been done before. It was a no-brainer. I played her as a woman. And sort of paved the way for people like Candace Kane and Laverne Cox, and here we are today.
Amazing. Any pushback from the network? Be honest.
I think it was. I had the idea very early on, and I think I was probably more hesitant about pitching it to them than once I pitched it. I think they were. What's interesting is it was really about what If Rebecca Romijn, then absolutely
Well, I have a feeling it made it a little more palatable.
Exactly.
Right.
Which was great, but thank God it paved, as you said, it's paved the way for.
It opened up some minds. I think.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. All right, we gotta go shallow. I have to go back to shallow. We're getting heavy.
We love.
I mean, the clothing on Ugly Betty.
Yeah.
The clothing on Ugly Betty, the great Patricia Fields. Let's just go down the line. Tell me your favorite outfit.
Thrift shop sweater. Retirement shoes.
Yeah, Tony got
A lot of cardigans.
Ignacio got the short shrift on that.
Yeah, it cost about $30, I think, for the entire season.
I always thought it was so funny that Justin, the Suarez family was not meant to have money in any regard, but Justin went through like all of season 3 wearing exclusively like Marc Jacobs sweaters. Wearing like Marc Jacobs sweaters with like a Margiela t-shirt underneath.
We just thought that Betty was bringing them home.
Girl.
I thought we were having a private conversation. I couldn't even begin to pick a favorite outfit, but I do remember one that stands out to me, which was it was entirely banana yellow. And I looked at when I went into the fitting, I was like, no, I don't do that. I mean, yellow, and Pat's like, what are you talking about? It's fabulous. It's cutting edge.
I'm quoting her. You can say it. Pat used to say this thing, and I'm quoting her, so don't say it's me. What? It's a bad word, but she said it, not us.
Well, she would look
Pat would look at you and be like, it's so cunty. You look like that. But in a good way. It was always a good word. It was not derogatory.
No, it was when she was stumped.
Especially
it was
with
when
my
she was
outfits.
stumped, and she would say, I don't know. I think it needs to be a little bit more cunty. And she was right every single time. Every single time.
Don't you remember, you'd walk into the wardrobe room and she'd have all these racks of clothes, and I remember I walked in this one time and she had like all these things from some thrift shop, and I said, no, Pat, the character is a very wealthy woman. And she said, shut up and take off your clothes. And she proceeded to take one of those dresses, and remember how she would take the things, we were just talking about this? She would cut off the arms. Her father had been a tailor, and so she knew how to redo stuff. She would take feather boas and wrap them around your neck and jewelry, and all of a sudden, there was your character. I mean, even the banana yellow. I mean, it was truly one of the most remarkable things that I ever experienced. It was extraordinary.
One of, I told this story earlier, but we were finding Betty in the wardrobe room before the pilot, and it was like, what does she look like? And we went through all these outfits, and you know, I just didn't feel the character, and she didn't feel the character, and then we finally got into an outfit that we both were like, yeah, this could be it, this could be it. I tried on like 200 pairs of glasses that were on the table, and then Kat's like, who's Kat? Pat is like, yeah, put these on. She takes her glasses off. I put them on my face. They're Betty's glasses. Those are the glasses I wore for 4 seasons. Were Pat Field's glasses. And Pat didn't care if it cost 2 cents or if it cost $2 million. It was the look and the feel, and did the character come alive? And Betty, trying to make someone look crazy and completely out of fashion, but also make them so fun to look at, is a skill. That's not something anybody can do. And personally, I feel like my character came alive because of what Pat contributed to the whole show.
And I have to say, like, a shout out to Pat and Becky, who's not here. Their collaboration. I mean, Amanda's outfits and the way Becky was able to sort of bring them to, I mean, the things that Amanda wore was so bananas, but it was so fabulous. I was so envious. I remember just being like, oh, and it was like a wide.
Use the microphone. I can't hear you.
Anyway, I just have to say, because I thought one of my favorite characters to look at was Amanda with
This is what it was like on the set, okay?
It was just more leopard for Hilda, more leopard.
Leopard, zebra.
Tits, hair, and animal prints.
That's a life motto for me. How about you, Eric?
No dresses for I did get to, we had to cut the suit so much, I won't go into the boring part of that, but one day I got to go to an actual tailor because I wanted to try building them from scratch, and I've never done that before, just picking bolts off the wall. But the one quick funny story is that she'd always come, she'd walk in, you know, she had a lot of assistants that would help with the fittings. She'd walk in with a cigarette. She looked disappointed about something. She was mad at her dogs for doing something. She'd do this thing, and she'd walk up and she'd always poke me right here. Poke me in the throat, because if there was any gap between the collar of my shirt and my neck, she made me take it back and cut it closer so it was around my neck. She didn't like that space there. But all the suits that I wore were, I mean, I've never worn clothes like that before, and I had so much fun. I mean,
Did you steal them?
No, I mean, I stole a couple and asked, but then ABC put everything up for sale after the show was canceled, and I bought all my suits at like 1/10 the cost.
What? That was the thing?
I just stole
Meanwhile,
everything.
Michael Urie, your entire apartment is Ugly Betty furniture.
Hey!
Let's be real with the fans. Okay?
There was a lot of furniture that fell off the truck.
The statute of limitations on that, what is it? 10 years?
Yeah, I bought my suits.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was told I couldn't buy anything, any of the
They
clothes.
put them up on an auction site.
Did they really?
Yeah, VIP auctions. Yeah, you just go and bid on it.
Well, they were cheaper the way I got them.
I didn't want to buy anything.
Ashley, you had some pretty amazing wardrobes too going on, like in the fashion closet.
I did, and I used to literally look forward to my costume fittings, and usually that's a wee bit boring for an actor to do the costume fitting, but Pat Field is just this legend. Yeah, she really does talk like that. She would sit with her 2 little toy poodles and she'd go like, try the other one on, take it off. And with anyone else, you'd be like, that's a little bit harsh. But you just went with it and you just trusted her. And literally, it's like you were saying, some of it would be vintage charity shop cheap shite. And some of it would be beautiful, vintage, proper designer, expensive stuff. And she would flip, and it was her eye, the way she would put an outfit together was just amazing, amazing.
Anyone else? Favorite outfits?
Vanessa, you have to talk about your clothes, girl.
I was waiting to, are you done? So Pat was more than just a stylist, and I hate when she just gets labeled as a stylist. Not only did her background come from fashion construction, but she was also so bold in whatever she put you in. You know, it's okay to mix metals. It doesn't have to match. As long as the structure and the lines made sense, the fabrics were the same value, no matter what colors they were. If they were as bright as each other, then they work. If they were this monochromatic, she'd make it work. So she is an amazing artist, absolutely, and can see and create magic on your body. What she did mostly with my stuff, which kind of defined my character, she ended up putting me in Terry Mugler, a lot of vintage Terry Mugler suits. And Terry was huge in the early 90s. And I used to wear Terry Mugler when I was performing my music back in the 90s. And but she had people on her team that had sources in West Palm Beach, in the Village, Upper West Side, that she knew women that collected these suits, and she'd call and she'd say, we need some suits, and Molly would go and talk to these divas, and she would bring a batch of suits, and whatever fit right, we would, alter toward me for my body, and these were one-of-a-kind suits that had cutouts and broad shoulders and peplums, and that really gave Wilhelmina her really distinct style, which is now knocked off 10 years later. You can see everything is keyholed and everything is padded shoulder, and that was Pat really going into the vintage back in the 90s. So she's amazing. For when we're talking about just her being creative, I had a pair of regular suede pumps. She took some fur pom-poms, snipped them off. She said, attach them to the back of your shoes. And in one particular scene, remember I had my pom-pom fur shoes, and it just made Wilhelmina different than everybody else. Crazy hats, but a hat would be really architectural and completely insane, but she'd pair it with an amazing full jacket that was classic and gorgeous, and elevate everything so you didn't look like a crazy woman, but you look completely unique. And I love her, and I think she's genius. And she's way more than a stylist.
I too had a head-to-toe banana number. Yeah, I had something that was like a full banana suit. It was great. They used to do, crazy stuff on me. I would have fittings for hours and hours. And we should just say, it wasn't just Pat. It was Molly and Paolo and Jackie, who were her team. And Paolo was the mark of the group, and so
Paolo's doing Empire right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and
working it out.
And Jackie's doing Younger, so they're both do great things. But I remember I had so many different kinds of ties, either like a cravat or bow tie or something. And so there were so many times when Pat would come up and figure out what the tie was going to be if it wasn't just a regular tie, and she'd have a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, and she would be right up in my face, tying something around. Just breathing. And if she didn't like it, she would say, "What is it saying? What is it saying?" But I think my favorite was the Mr. Peanut outfit that I wore one time, where I had a cane and a top hat and a vest. And we walked through.
We walked through a park or something.
We walked through the park right by City Hall in New York. And shortly after that, I remember I was in LA had already moved to New York, but I was in LA for something. And Silvio took me to a drink. We went to drinks, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. One-on-one time with the creator. And I was like, maybe he's gonna tell me some dish about the character or something inside. Like, this is gonna be a really exciting storyline coming up. We had drinks, nothing. It was just we just hung out and just chill, very cool. And then at the the end of drinks, he said, "Oh, no more hats."
Pat, who's brilliant, she told me, she goes, I always try to sneak a hat or a joke or something in there because I want me in the frame. You guys only film here. So, and she lost it on me one day because we weren't featuring the shoes enough. So I had to, she goes, why don't you do everything wider? Everything's tight. I'm like, well, it's not about the shoes in the scene, but she's, you know, she's amazing. And she brought something, but sometimes, yeah, we had a hat watch at times. I'm like, let's just.
What about that story? Do you guys remember when she left, in one of her tirades, she left a voicemail for somebody complaining? Do you remember this story? She left Victor a voicemail saying, "You guys don't know what you're doing. I'm telling you, blah, 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 blah. Okay, goodbye." But she didn't hang up. She would always keep her phone in her bra. And then she kept going. She was walking down the street with Paolo, and she was like, "These people don't know what they're doing. They don't know how great they are with me." And then you hear in the voice, you hear her go, "I can't fucking. Oh, hi, hey, how are you? Hi, you look great."
I still have that voicemail. Anybody wants to hear it? It's about 5 minutes long, but it is.
That's amazing. I want to talk about the dialogue on the show. My personal favorite line, did you just gesture at me when you said Kwanzaa?
That was Sheila Lawrence, brilliant, amazing.
I mean, like every episode.
That Christmas I did a mug that said that for Christmas and Kwanzaa.
Perfect. I was wondering if you could all again tell me your favorite line that you got to say. If you remember, I know it's been a few years.
Well, I've got one. There was one scene that I was doing where there was something written and it was like, bollocks wanker. And I was like, we don't say that kind of stuff on British television.
You know what it was?
What was it?
Wasn't it Winkle me bum?
Yeah,
or some Winkle me bum.
Winkle. No, there was one. There was a bollocks and a wanker definitely involved.
There was
And I was like, do you realise wanker's quite a bad one in Britain to be saying on national television? But you guys bought it, so I was like, I'm going to embrace it. Wanker! I loved it. It was brilliant. Bollocks, wanker.
I think my first line ever in the show, I don't want flan, I'll get fat.
Didn't you say something? What was your line in the pilot about J-Lo? You came out and you brought me tea and you said something about J-Lo.
Something about how like things like getting a job in a magazine is only.
Oh, they don't. Those things only happen for people like J-Lo.
Those things only happen for people like J-Lo. Getting an assistant job in a fashion magazine.
Sylvia, tell me about the writers' room. I mean, it must have been like some of the lines when you all came up with them. It must have been such a joy because they were so fun to watch.
It was a great group of writers. I wish some of them had been able to come today, but yeah, we would just laugh the whole day, you know. I mean, and then we'd realize, oh, Jesus, we have to turn the script in 2 days. But it was an interesting mix. There was people that came from the drama world and whose 1 hour world. So their experience tended to focus more on the structure and the story. There were people that came from, a lot of people from Will and Grace, a lot of people from half hours, from sitcoms. And so they would just have these great zingers. And so there was this interest within the writer's room. There was this great fusion of and that's what the show was. It wasn't a drama, it wasn't a comedy, it was a dramedy. And the where it best functioned was when we really kept that line, balanced it very well. So it was a lot of fun.
When you all look back on this experience, I know just from talking to you all, it's such a special experience for all of you. Do you have a moment when you think about it that you're the most proud of?
I wasn't gonna say proud, but one of the funniest ones that was in our first season is when Mark and Wilhelmina get caught in Queens, and she's completely rude to the taxi driver Pradeep, And he kicks us out in the middle of Queens, and we have no money. And we see some streetwalkers or ladies of the night standing on the corner, and I'm wearing a white fur, and we're all dressed up. And one of my favorite lines was, they come and try to approach me, and I say, "Stop pawing my piece." And we run into a little church in some alley, and we're desperate, and I take off my heel and crack open the collection box and rummage for them. But the situations that we were put in on an episodic basis were so exciting, because like, now where are they gonna go? Now what's gonna happen? Are we gonna be able to play softball with Naomi Campbell? I had to take pitching lessons so I could actually pitch to her and not hit her. But these are the kind of things that, I had a baseball bat one time.
I'm just gonna let that lie out there.
And I did not hit her. But I had situations where you never knew where you're gonna end up the following episode, and that was thrilling about what this show is unique compared to everybody else.
And that scene, the line that you had after you opened up the collection box, oh, poor people are so cheap.
That scene with the women of the night, do you remember there was a real homeless guy who came into who came into the scene and was like sitting there, and I was like, do you know that guy? And he's like, no, I don't know that guy, and then he like ran off. I would say, to answer the pride question.
He has a sad card now, by the way.
Yeah, now a sad story. When my character came out to his mother in the first season, played by Patti LuPone, she, as he was, the instigation for him to finally do it, because he'd been lying to her all these years, and there's this hilarious episode where Betty pretends to be Mark's girlfriend, and we go to Queens and have dinner. My mom and I go to Queens and have dinner, and it was complete heaven. And as she's leaving, she's fed up and she's leaving, and I still haven't gotten the guts to come out. Justin runs by and says, "There's a Golden Girls marathon on." And my mom, played by Patti LuPone, said, "Oh, and that boy, he's just so swishy." And that's the tipping point for Mark, for my character. And that's when I come out and I say, "Mom, open your eyes and look at your own swishy son." And I got a MySpace message. Remember MySpace? I got a MySpace message from someone who said, I was watching that episode with my mom, and at the end of it, she said to me, "I hope that if I had a swishy son, he wouldn't be afraid to say so." And that was like, I mean, when I read, and we all got lots of messages like that. The show really touched people. And really spoke to truths. They never took the easy way out. The easy TV happy ending thing would be for Mark's mom to say, "It's okay, I've always known, and I support you." But no, she walked out and she never came back, ever. And that is truths to people. That's the way it is for some people. Just like Justin coming out to his family, his Latino family, might not have gone the way that it did in our show. For many people, it wasn't that, but they never took the easy way out. The writers never did the easy story. They always told the truth, and I think that's why it touched so many people.
Speaking of, speaking of not an easy story, one of the stories that really stayed with me was when Betty and Mark were vying for one position on the, what was it called?
Yeti?
Mode.
Yeti,
the Young Editors Training Initiative.
And they're like competing and they hate each other, and that was maybe one of my favorite outfits to harken back, that episode. That was a good one, the beret, the red beret.
Oh yeah.
And Betty gets it. And she walks over to Mark, and they've always had this kind of playful love-hate thing, mostly hate, a little bit love. And Betty's proud, and she's just like, "Well, I did it, like I got it." And Mark says something like, "Yeah, well, of course, you're the Latina. Like, you're exactly what they were looking for." It like cuts her down that she got the job because she was Latina. And it was one of the first times that like Mark said something that actually hurt Betty. because it was, you said all kinds of mean stuff to her and she could always brush it off, but that comment really cut her down and made her feel so small. And it was hard because I loved the character Mark and I had such weird feelings about that. But of course he was at a place where he, needed to make himself feel better by saying that comment. And, they didn't wrap it up in a pretty bow and they didn't say like, Betty didn't ever get the validation that no, she didn't get it because she was the Latina or, she got it because she was the best. They just kind of let that be there. And I remember that being an episode that really always felt hard and always just stayed with me. I was really proud of that. And I think probably rang true for a lot of people in their experiences.
Was that something that in the writer's room you felt like, you know what, let's not make this all tied up so neatly. Let's just leave some of the world out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first half of the episode is played almost like a straight ahead, like spy versus spy comedy. You guys are competing, and then it sort of shifted and it became, yeah, you won, but it wasn't fair. And then it shifted into a lot of conversations, and you had the conversations with your family. I remember the conversations with Hilda, and so. Yeah, we wanted to almost put out all, the sides of this issue, and it doesn't. There was no neat, ribbon. There wasn't a need to. I think it played realistically and honestly raw.
Since you're also humble about your own great performances, what's something that one of your cast members did that blew you away?
On Anna's episode at the beginning of season 2, when we think her husband is still alive. Santos, we think Santos is still alive for the entire episode. Season 1 ends with him getting shot. And episode 1 of season 2, he's bandaged and they're lying in bed and he's fine and they're having a wonderful time. And by the end of the episode, we realize that she's been imagining the whole thing. She was incredible.
Crying all day. In a good way, but.
Anyone else?
Oh, God. There's so much, I think also one of the episodes was what was the prom, the homecoming queen episode?
Yeah.
Watching Mark, I mean, really the whole evolution of watching him become this amazing person, but I thought that episode was incredible, and it was hard for you, I remember, and it was really beautiful work.
Hard for you. What made that episode?
It was the episode where Justin, as a joke, they dub him Homecoming Queen.
Right.
And I think it was hard because in that moment I wanted him to be so hurt. And he was so hurt, but to be so explicitly hurt, and he turns it around and kind of makes this joke about it and dedicates it to his mother. And I mean, it's hard. I mean, I think that, I don't know, the entire journey with Justin was hard to see him be ridiculed for nothing other than his identity. It's quite difficult to see anyone be ridiculed for just being themselves. So that's probably why it was so hard.
I want to talk about the finale. What a great finale to a series. I think when I went back and before this panel and rewatched some episodes, the moment where the word ugly disappears from the screen, I was just like weeping, and it was such a beautiful moment. Was that something that was always the plan? Did you sort of see that early on?
No, it wasn't. But you're in a series. I didn't know what the ending was going to be when I started. A lot of people were like, oh, I know. Most part, anybody that says that they know how the series is going to end is they're lying. It really came about from, again, it was an organic thing. It felt by that time, and she had her makeover. But it was by the time that we did the makeover episode, it was almost so besides the point. It was, the point of the show wasn't about. There was so much talk, oh, ugly Betty, or what are we saying about this? No, the point is, what does a person think when they hear those words? And the reality is, look beyond this, the title, the name. And so, at the very end, it's, the word fades because it never really should have been there if we're really talking about who she is. But it got your attention, and that's the first thing people see. But the reality is, it was a perception of a person, which is what we end up doing. We end up putting these labels. So the idea was, let's rip that off.
Did the network not get a little bit frightened of the use of the word ugly? Are we at the beginning? Is that right?
They wanted to call it Betty the Ugly.
Like her last name? Hey, I'm Betty Ugly.
I think they were thinking like Alexander the Great, or I don't know. I never got it, and they actually, we were in New York for the upfronts, and at that point, you'd wake up and look at the newspaper to see what's going on. I didn't know what day we were going to be, programmed, and I look, and we were set to be on Friday initially, and the title of the show was Betty the Ugly. They didn't tell me, and so that's what we were for a couple months before we started, before we premiered, and I just kept. On every script, I just kept putting Ugly Betty, Ugly Betty. We just refused to call it that. So.
I heard a story, America, I don't know if this is true, but that when you guys were initially on Friday and you walked up to Steve McPherson and you were like, if you like our show so much, put us on Thursday. Did that actually happen?
I don't remember. But
Anna's nodding.
Yeah, I was there. And it was at the upfront.
I mean, it sounds like something I would do.
Well, he kept talking about how we were testing so well.
Right.
And also the critics were crazy about it. I think it was at one of those critics TCAs, yeah. And you said, well, if we're doing so well, why not put us on Thursdays? And that's what happened.
Yeah, it was a good idea.
She was bold.
One of the special things we would do also as a cast, not only did we spend lots of hours together, and in an hour drama, most people come in, shoot their scenes, and leave. We had so much scene work together as Suarez, Mode, the crossover, but also on the nights that we would actually see the next episode for our meal, we'd all gather, we'd all sit in our chairs, we would sometimes have a catered meal, sometimes it would be Mexican night or Hawaiian night or whatever, so we have a themed dinner, and we'd watch the episode together. So even if we missed someone else shooting, we get a chance to see the whole show before it came out. And that was one of our really special times, don't you think?
Yeah, I think.
With the crew too, with the crew.
And I think what you said before, Vanessa, when we were doing the interview, I think it was for Good Morning America maybe, but you were talking about how it was, all of us being together, it was like a theater company. And being like a theater company, everybody was there and everybody was part of this ensemble and everybody was invested in everybody else's story and what the story was going to lead to and where you might fit. And the thing that was always so fascinating to me about this is that this piece was a piece about service. It was all about service to these characters and to all of you who have been so appreciative of the work that we've done, that you cared about what we were giving you. And you could see and you could feel what was the energy of this connection that we all had, that was like this theater company that was coming across through the television set and out into everybody's home. And you saw a story about people and their families and these incredibly flawed human beings that really were wanting to be somewhere else, more, always wanting to be who they knew they could always be, their authentic selves. And I think that comes across in this show in a way that I think is really quite remarkable. But I think it came from that whole experience of us doing a lot of things together, and not just being separated.
When you're on Broadway, you show up at the same time, you all warm up at the same time, and then you start the show. very similar to how we were all, if we weren't even in one episode, we'd be shooting another episode. So there would be a lot of, work that we'd all be at the same time, all together every day. And we really became the Ugly Betty Company.
And sometimes you would do incredibly long tracking shots where they didn't cut the camera. And God forbid you were the last person with a line at the end of the shot, shitting yourself in case you were the one that messed up.
I love that you mentioned that you guys were like a theater company and almost like a musical theater company. There was so much talk about like, is there gonna be a musical episode early on? Do you remember that?
One of the regrets, we didn't get a chance to do it.
Like, give me a song title. Tell me, or like a couple. Like, what was going on in that mind of yours?
It didn't even go that far. I mean, we started having the conversations. It was I don't know. I can't even tell you right now why we couldn't do it. And I know that there was a budgetary thing, which was, always a factor. But I think we kept saying, you know what it was? We moved to New York, and that was a big deal. And then by that point, and the following year, we never got to it. We never got to the musical episode. So
We did do that New York number. What was it?
Oh, it was like a promo.
The commercial
for season
promo.
At the upfronts.
Sing on it.
At the upfronts.
Yeah, the upfronts.
Oh, with
No,
the
but we also-
Rockettes. Remember the Rockettes?
Yeah.
The Radio
Oh, that was
City
wasn't New York.
Rockettes
That was
came out?
one from a chorus.
One singular sensation.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there was another. We did a promo where we did.
We sang New York, New York.
New
It was a
York.
promo, yeah. They played it somewhere, I don't know.
I
But
thought-
there was
I thought that
so
the
much
beginning of
singing
that.
on set, like non-stop
You used to
singing. And then we'd
all
have
the
like
time.
guest stars like Patti LuPone. We would just
Forget
like sit
about
there and be like, sing this, sing
How
that.
about Adele? You were the first one to bring Adele on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's talk about
She's
some of
a
the
huge
guest
Adele fan.
stars.
Shakira.
Well, we made Adele famous. We just wanted to.
You're welcome, Adele.
You're welcome, Adele.
Well, Betty
You still
was
haven't
so-
returned my email, by the way, so it's cool.
Betty was so cutting edge. Yeah, like you, Vanessa said. I mean, Betty was like, she was the Adele fan back before like any of us.
Yeah, that was me. That was America. 'Cause I had her album 19, and anyway, she was on SNL the night that Sarah Palin was on SNL. Remember? And I went, and I was like sitting there singing every word to songs that people didn't know, and some guy's like, "Do you want to go meet her?" And I was like, "I'm gonna die." And I went down there. I was like, "Ah!" She's like, "It's only Betty." And because we were like, that was a really good accent, right, Ashley? That's what we were
Amazing, amazing.
And I was like, "Come be on our show," and she's like, "I would love to." And then she came and did our show. It was amazing.
It's so cool. There were so many great guest stars on the show. Anyone have a favorite?
Well, LuPone was pretty good. Patti LuPone was pretty awesome.
And Bernadette
Bernadette
Peters.
Peters, Christine Baranski.
Christine Baranski.
I liked your dentist.
Bernadette Peters. Oh, Jesse Tyler
Jesse-
Ferguson.
yes.
Kristen Chenoweth.
Kristen Chenoweth. Oh, Octavia Spencer.
Oh.
Academy Award.
She goes, I don't go blonde for just anybody.
Who else? Bernadette Peters.
yes.
Oh my God, and Adam Rodriguez, Freddie Rodriguez.
Yeah. Who else?
Chris Gorham.
Yo, Lucy Liu? You got to. Lucy Liu! Eric got to kiss so many hot women. Selma
Having
Hayek.
Selma on the show.
Adriana
was-
Lima.
Gabriel Union.
Lindsay Lohan.
Brooklyn
Who?
Stewart.
She did off-camera work for me.
Is this ATX After Dark?
Yeah, I love how the show and in the final episode in the series finale, Betty's in London, and Daniel shows up, and I love how the show ended. That there was it was kept open-ended. Is something going to happen? The show was so beside the point of quote unquote getting this guy. It was about so way beyond that. It was. But what do you all think happened? I mean, do you think they ended up together?
You're like, it's not about the romance, but did they end up together? No, I I do truly think that it was a special, new kind of central relationship on a show. It was about a different kind of love, and it wasn't about this ugly girl, quote unquote, looking for some guy to say she was good enough or to make her feel good about herself. If anything, Betty showed him that he was good enough, you know, and and you know, and I always thought of that last scene as Daniel, you know, coming back to say thank you, because because you didn't say bye to me when I left. You didn't say bye to me when I left New York, and you were mad at me for going to get a better job. Why were you so mad at me?
Because things were just starting. Just starting.
But Hulu's gonna pick us up for a 2-hour special, and then we're gonna find out. That's not true, but if we tweet it. Betty, what is our hashtag? Betty, reboot, Hulu.
It's gonna be Ugly Betty.
Reboot
Ugly
Betty.
We don't want to think it's some other Betty.
Well, we'll think of something before the panel's over.
Betty White.
And then we're all gonna hashtag and tweet it out, and then we're gonna get Hulu to buy a 2-hour special.
Back to work.
2 hours.
But you guys
You're getting it
really,
short
really
shrift. There's a
helped
lot more stories.
Yeah.
And so,
Gilmore
It's a
Girls is gonna
pilot.
do
It's a pilot.
the whole 13 episode
reboot.
thing, so.
You guys could
you never
really
know.
make that happen.
Let's just say, I mean, on this very stage a year ago, the cast of Gilmore Girls was here at ATX. Just saying, something happened after their ATX panel. They'll be on Netflix for 4 movies later this year.
What was their hashtag?
It was also Betty's reboot, Hulu, oddly enough.
maybe it's hashtag Hulu bring back Betty.
That's good.
Hulu bring back Ugly Betty, just in case they think of that other Betty show. They're gonna think Betty.
Betty White.
Betty White.
Yeah.
Hulu bring back Ugly Betty. Do it now. Take your phones out.
Betty White was on Ugly
All of
Betty.
your
Yeah,
thumbs.
I was on that.
Betty White was on Ugly
Betty
Betty.
White.
Remember, I slammed her fingers in my door.
Where do you all think your characters would be for this inevitable Hulu reboot? Where are your characters now? What are they doing? Let's like go down the line.
Exact same spot.
No, I think we'd be at Mode UK.
Oh.
We cross the pond.
Oh, okay.
And take shit over there. Let's do it.
Good.
Getting released from prison.
Back in the sanitarium.
And I think I've got a 10-year-old child, haven't I?
But we've been hanging out in the UK.
Yeah. But did you move to the UK and stay there? Hell, you're probably living with me.
Did you not? Wait, Ashley,
My
are you saying you
alcoholic
did not
husband.
watch the finale of the show? It's
Back
news
in
to you?
Britain. What show?
Extras, have you seen it? You know, someone asked me that outside, and I think because of the effect of Betty on Daniel, that he asks Alexis to take over the magazine and maybe heads off into something more meaningful, philanthropy.
You just happen to have an outline with you. You're pitching the show. I feel like, okay, I have thought about this. I feel like, okay, so we fade in. No, I think that it's been 6 years, maybe 7, depends on how long, when does Hulu want to premiere? And I think that Betty has been in London for 6 years and now she's coming home. That's what it is.
I think Hilda probably had another baby with Bobby. And since they were moving to Manhattan, maybe she either opened her salon, you know, probably uptown, or maybe she started her own like a skincare line. Or like a makeup, you know, like maybe she had...
Dream bigger, baby, dream bigger.
That's big, right?
Roxanne Rizzo.
Roxanne Rizzo, exactly.
Maybe Justin is finishing fashion school at the new school or Central St. Martin's or something.
I am cleaning, cooking, and doing laundry for my family.
He's got a new car.
Only Latino man on the planet to do that, actually. But I'm part
Did you
time.
marry Lauren Velez?
Yes.
Yes!
Yes, and I'm doing laundry for her too.
Did you have another baby?
Yeah, maybe. No,
Bucky, no!
Because then you're not going to be the baby anymore.
No, I want you to come back and take over Mode, and I'll be the head chef at Mode. Part-time.
Silvio, do you have, I mean, in the years since the show's been off, have you always been keeping a little tally of storylines in your head of what might be?
Yes. Though I will say that being here with everybody and listening to these ideas, it's kind of refreshing it. Here's the only thing I know for sure. If we were to do something, it would be a dream, but everybody on the stage would have to be involved, and Becky Noon. So.
All right, can we get a verbal commitment?
I mean, it took 20 minutes for everyone to say yes to my email to be at ATX. Like, yeah, I think they're gonna be at the reunion movie.
So are there talks? Are there like...
This is the talk.
Right, well, this is the talk.
Hulu, bring back Ugly Betty. Already did it.
I want to see all of your thoughts.
I love it.
So
And not just a movie.
We'll start with the movie, Bobby. Dang.
Okay. As a pilot.
All right, I'm in. I want to open it up to some audience questions. You guys are amazing. Don't be shy, people.
Somebody already liked my tweet.
Well, I wanted to, not so much of a question as a comment, is I was a hospice nurse, so I am still, but during the 90s when in Seattle when many beautiful gay young men passed before my eyes, and a lot of families found out that their son was gay because they were dying. And then I, as a mother, got to have the very millennial experience of my son coming out to me in the very millennial way of sending me a text. He said, I think I'm gay. And I said, think or are? And he said, are. I said, okay. I love you. I gotta go to a meeting right now. I'll talk when we get home, and and it's been kind of like a no big deal thing. And anyway, it's just nice how TV has been a way to change the mindset of a lot of people who were closed-minded, or to see that they're just people. And anyway, thank you.
You're a good mom and a good person.
I just had a quick question. I was curious what you guys thought, why it's so hard to have Hispanic families on television. I mean, ever since you guys, I think maybe the next show, Jane the Virgin, has been the only successful show to ever do it. So I'm just curious as to what you guys think is the reason behind that.
I would have to say that, as we heard Silvio say earlier, he wasn't trying to break boundaries, he was writing what he knew. And we were just lucky enough that they found a creative voice that had this experience. And I think a big part of seeing ourselves on screen is getting people more diverse experiences and voices in the writer's room, and creating and telling these stories. It's also not always the most authentic experience to have a room full of non-minority people writing the minority experience, and when it works in this authentic kind of organic way, it's usually because they picked an authentic voice to tell it. And so, if we're not seeing the stories on screen, it's because we're not getting the people to tell those stories. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the people running, the people making the decisions aren't necessarily the people that are represented on the screen. And so, it could be a disconnect there. But I think the other part is, there is a dearth and whether of diverse voices. I think whether it's because they're not given the opportunity or there's not as many. I mean, I've been actually trying to figure out why. Why isn't there more? I mean, part of me thinks sometimes I know my family was, very much encouraged me to pursue my passion, but I know a lot of friends who are first generation Latin American, and they are told, go for the money, go for the thing that is very secure. Don't, the arts is oftentimes following your passion is not necessarily encouraged. It's more of a dream. There is something to that line of things like that don't happen unless you're J-Lo. I think part of it is people need to be given the opportunity. I think part of it, I think there's people, not enough people necessarily are willing to take that risk, and I hope more people do.
America, I just want to follow up, and it's a great question. Gina Rodriguez, wonderful actress on Jane the Virgin, has said that her dream is for the character of Ugly Betty to somehow come onto her show. Any chance we'll be seeing that?
I mean, if she could get the CW and ABC to shake hands, sure. That's a tall order. I would love to, I guess, wear Betty's. Well, not braces, because she doesn't have braces anymore.
She may have an accident.
She might have.
Invisalign that.
When the ugly faded away in the season finale, she then tripped and fell and broke all her teeth. Then have to get braces back again. That would be so fun, but I don't know that could happen.
Did you keep the braces once did you keep any moment the set of the glasses or anything from?
I kept the poncho and the glasses. I think I stomped on the braces when I was done.
Did you ever try them on?
No, I hated those.
No, not the braces. Did you ever put on the poncho at home sometimes and you're like?
That's for me to know.
Go ahead.
Hi. For any or all of the actors, if you could have spent an episode or a day playing a different character, who do you think would have been the most fun to play and why?
I think I would have liked to play Judith Light's character.
And I would do the laundry.
I think it would be harder for you than for me.
Amanda.
Yeah, I think I would toss up between Amanda or Wilhelmina.
I would be Hilda. Because I've got the worst Latina accent in the world. And they just laugh at me.
I would be Mark.
I go with Mark or Amanda.
Yeah. I like Hilda too.
Yeah, me too.
Hi, Poppy.
Hi, Poppy. Yeah, Hilda.
By the way, a shout out, even though Becky is not here, Mark and Amanda as a duo, I think one of the great TV duos of all time. I mean, Michael, did you just have the best time, the two of you bouncing off each other?
We share a brain. And I have it today, so. That was one of those chicken and the egg things. That our friendship kind of came from the characters, and the characters kind of came from our friendship. We immediately we sort of just glommed onto each other, and we're still really close. I mean, if you guys couldn't tell, we're all still really close. And the strangest thing to me about this is that it doesn't feel like any time has passed at all. I feel like this is the same panel we did when the show came on at the TCA. I mean, it feels exactly the same. The dynamic it doesn't feel like any time has passed. It feels like we could go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Hulu, hashtag Hulu.
Love your shirt.
Go ahead.
You guys can't see, but this lovely lady who's about to ask a question has Betty's Guadalajara poncho in t-shirt form.
I want one.
Did you make that?
No. No,
long time ago. I dressed up as Betty for Halloween when I was back in high school. It's awesome. But so y'all were speaking earlier about how ugly fades away at the end of the finale. What are some of the big take-home messages y'all hope generations later on will continue to keep getting from the show, regardless of whether they watch it 20, 30, 40 years later?
It's being true to your authentic self.
And I would say also for young women that they really know and understand and get inside themselves deeply that their beauty comes from someplace else that has absolutely nothing to do with the way they look or the way the culture tells them that they have to look. And I hope that we really take that message away. And America has talked about that for such a long time, and that also that the other, the ones that we shun and push away, and particularly the LGBTQ community, that we begin to understand that the bigotry is our own, that it is not about the person, and that we stop and that we end the bigotry and we end the shunning of the other. And I think that's been a big message for Betty, the other.
About, you know, Mode obviously gave us this very fun, sexy environment to play in. And yes, it was camp and catty and bitchy and fabulous, but there was something about this kind of, a juxtaposition of the Suarezes from Queens and the world of Mode crashing up against each other, and Betty's kind of her hero's journey to be, how do I face this world, this culture, and stay true to what makes me valuable and what makes me me. And I think that's a huge just metaphor for what we all deal with going into life every day, is so much culture, so many definitions, so many expectations coming at us, and how we choose to engage with them is only up to us. And you know, the power that you have to find to see it, engage with it, even love it, even enjoy it, but don't let it define you and don't let it change you.
I just wanted to add one other thing about the Latino family in Queens, that for me it was so powerful, the message of how important family is in terms of defining who we are. And I think it's intrinsic to Latino culture, that Latino culture, you know, we are defined by family. We are dedicated to defining it, and the fact that we were portrayed in multidimensional ways. We were flawed. We were funny. We were courageous. We were weak at times, strong at times. I mean, I just loved the way that we were portrayed as people and as a family, and that's, I think, one of the things that I'm most proud of, because I think it set a new paradigm for how Latinos should be written and how they should be portrayed. And I'm just, you know, so frustrated, because I've been an actor for 40 years now, and I think it's one of the few times when we've seen that happen. And yet it fails to be emulated, you know, and I don't know why, because it was very successful in the way we did it. So that's I think that for me, that's one of the more powerful messages of the series.
But also in the world that we're living in, the attributes that seem to be the ones that people think are great are like what you look like and how thin you are, and how, you know, people taking selfies and looking a certain way. And it's kindness and compassion, which I think are so important, and they're desperately overlooked. Nobody goes, oh, which one she's the kind girl. It's like, you know, she's the really good looking one, she's the tall one, she's the sexy one. But to be the kind girl, I think that's the one that you really want to be, and that's who Betty was. And, you know, that should be applauded.
And One of the most fun episodes for me was when Daniel ended up at the Suarez's house for Christmas. It just felt like, it was funny that the white male is the outsider, and yet in that environment, he was healed by what he couldn't get from his own family that the Suarez's had. It was a really powerful episode for me, and also being a type of older brother character to Justin in that episode, it really resounded with me. That was fun.
I think we just have time for maybe one more question. Go ahead.
My question is actually maybe for Eric and Silvio. I was just wondering if there was maybe some part of Daniel's journey towards becoming a better man that you felt that you didn't have time to explore. Like there were so many different milestones that he had, like raising his son, who I guess didn't really turn out to be his son, but still like the experience of it. And also like his relationship with Molly and the fact that he was, feeling that he was ready to step up and make that move, even though it didn't work out. It just showed so much of his character and becoming more molded. So I was wondering if there was maybe some other kind of a part of that journey that you felt you didn't get a chance to go into, that you might have liked to, and that you might have wanted to write.
Not to sound cliche, but there was something about the upbringing that Daniel had in such a dysfunctional family. The butler was terribly mean, is what I meant. Sorry. I felt like the ending for me was, for Daniel, was the beginning, really, because he really saw Betty as an equal through and through. I believe for the first time, where let's see what happens was the promise of the ending. It was a new beginning, and I feel like yes, there's a whole lot. He learned how to not only access his feelings because he couldn't with that father that he had, but also Betty taught him how to love unconditionally. And the tools that he gained through their relationship and the love that he felt for and from her armed him in a way so that he could go on and try that again, try to fall in love again, try and start a family. Any direction, just like Betty started out when she walks away, the possibilities are limitless. That's how it felt.
That's some deep thinking, Eric.
The eggs a la Hilda recipe, though, is there can you text that to me? The eggs a la Hilda recipe?
Oh, is that you? Oh, hi. We have a thing. I don't know how to make eggs a la Hilda. Jalapenos. Cheese. Onions. Salt.
Okay. My question is for Rebecca and Eric. I just wanted to know a little more about how you formed your brother-sister relationship and maybe any funny memories from when you were in that competitive episode era.
We had so much fun. It was so fun. I think probably fighting over the chair was my single favorite, most fun sight gag to do.
Ever.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Making Victor, our director, laugh was I think one of the most fun things about that. Well, I think as we got to know each other as actors, it was the estrangement that the brother-sister and the betrayal that Daniel felt, really, because he had to mourn the death of his brother and also at the same time process the fact that he's not he anymore, and the whole world turning upside down. So as we sort of got to know one another as actors, I felt like the characters were unfolding as Silvio and the other writers were creating that. So I think it was a pretty organic process.
But I feel like I also went back into brother mode with you sometimes,
Absolutely.
which also, I loved getting in your face sometimes and still being your big brother. It was so fun. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
And I also thought it was very moving how with at a certain point Daniel kept referring to Alexis as he. And it was a really big deal, and then has that moment where he refers to his sister as she, and it was a very important moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I just came off of a set where there's someone going through an operation, and it's impulse, and you keep experiencing these moments that we addressed years and years ago. It's really interesting because it defines us as people as we struggle with perceptions again. It's, you know, a recurrent theme.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi. First of all, it's amazing to be in front of all of you. My little sister and I traveled here, and we really just watch the show every week. We still go back to it, and now as I'm working, I see so many of these characters behaving in such ways that I get advice from them in a way. So what we really wanted to know is, to all the cast members, what's one piece of advice that you think is something that you've carried with you throughout your life?
From the show or from?
Just anything.
Well, people always used to ask me when I was growing up in a small town in Scotland, who did I want to be? Who did I want to be like? And I always found it a bit difficult to answer that question. And then I realized when I grew up that I didn't really want to be like anybody else. I wanted to be me. And when I realized that there's actually nobody more unique than you, just be you, because you are unique.
My mother had the advice that I listen to all of her advice because she's amazing, but she has something she calls the 3-day rule, which it can apply to anything, but it usually in my world applies to, like, if something really hideous happens or if I'm furious at somebody, to just give it 3 days. The first day you can be angry, the second day you sort of can like mellow out, and then the third day you can actually process it. So for me, really, that's worked out for my life, has been the 3-day rule. On so many different levels, but anyway, I'll give myself 3 days to fucking mellow out, you know? It takes me that long to mellow out.
You know, for Ignacio, I thought about this a lot, but I feel that it's really about, you know, what really makes you happy in life. And Ignacio taught me that it's not about just taking care of Ignacio. It's not about me. I think that Ignacio was fulfilled and made happy, satisfied by the fact that he was there for other people, for his family. And he was a happy guy. and he didn't have a lot, you know? He didn't have money, he didn't have, you know, a big house, but he had his family. And the fact that he dedicated himself to his family fulfilled him. And in very simple yet deep and satisfying way. So I really think that was a great lesson that I learned from my character and from the show.
I would say one thing that I learned from this experience of this family that you see up here is that you have to be in the moment. You have to live what's in front of you right now, because you don't know, you know, how long it's going to be around, or how much it's going to change, or whether you'll have the friendship and the love forever. And you know, when the show ended, I don't know about these guys, but I went into like a deep depression, because it was like losing a family, you know, that you saw every day. Actually, I know a couple of you went through depressions.
Let's hear it for depression.
Yeah, hey, depression. And honestly, like, I think a part of why when we all get together, we start crying, which we did. You can see it on Good Morning America on Thursday. We cried. Why we cried is because there's always like a little piece of me. I'll speak for myself. There's always a piece of me that feels like that still doesn't want to let this go. That still doesn't want to let Betty go, and this family go, and this experience go. And just knowing that they feel the same way makes it a little bit easier to move on. You know, knowing that like they're gonna have other casts, but they're never gonna love them as much as they love us, makes me feel a little better. and just knowing that like that loss and that pain is just always gonna be there. And to just get used to it and get friendly with it and be like, oh yeah, that thing I lost that I wish I'd never lost, that still sucks, and yet I got to have it, and that was so amazing. And I feel like that's what I learned from, and now I'm gonna cry, this experience.
How did you all? I mean, was it one of those, like what America was saying? Was it like, oh God, this is, I don't know how I'm going to get through this moment for you all?
I was gonna stop acting. I took a job for the BBC and moved my family to South Africa. I was that.
Just because you work for the BBC doesn't mean you're stopping acting.
Have you done a job for the BBC before?
I most certainly have.
Well, they don't pay.
That's true. But we have our dignity. Not that you don't, Eric.
For me, it felt like a plane crash. Like the whole thing crashed, and I lost these people temporarily. You know, I mean, we were still alive in the other world, but we weren't working. We weren't in this fictional world anymore, and I missed it. But it was so sudden.
Do you remember when we were shooting those last scenes? It felt so disgusting. It was
Oh,
gonna
it
be
just
the
felt
last.
like a heartbreak.
It was gonna be the last this and the last
It was just
that.
heartbreak. Like I remember when we wrapped Vanessa, and then I remember when we wrapped Mode. The last day we shot at Mode, the last day we shot in the Suarez family, which by the way, these two started, well, can I say this now? They just started stealing everything from the house. I was like, you guys,
I was trying to get them not to, and they just said, shut up.
I have my Hilda's utility sign.
It was endless goodbyes. I disagree. It wasn't like a plane crash. It was just like a very slow, painful. I digress. I think, something America said I really relate to, which is about taking that moment and appreciating what you have and what. So often, I mean, look, doing a show and doing a network show where you're doing 22, 23, I think one year we did 24 episodes, it's nonstop, and it is so easy to just get, put your head down and not really you're always thinking about the next thing and what the next episode, and you just stop and take that moment and really appreciate, and I had to learn that. I had to learn to, this is great. Even whatever is happening, whatever issues, this is a great moment in my life, in our lives, and we have to stop, and you have to stop and appreciate where you are, because you never get that back. You never get that, good or bad, those learning experiences or those wonderful moments back. So
another thing that you're watching with these both sofas is that everyone is a pro up here. So our advice is show up on time, know your shit, because everyone was prepared, and it's courteous. We get a chance to complete our day. We're not wasting anyone's time. No one's stuck in their trailer having a temper tantrum. Everyone showed up, gave more than 100%, and you were looking at a bunch of pros up here because we love the work, but we're all professionals. So show up on time and know your shit.
Hashtag show up on time and know your shit.
Hi, I just have a really quick comment for Miss Williams. I'm not sure if you might remember, but your Pavarotti with Friends sing-along. I grew up watching that, and I will never forget the Betcha Never song and the lovely dress you wore with the huge slit going up there. But I just thought that this would be a really good time to say that you're my childhood idol and still am one, so thank you.
Show up on time and know your shit. Our last audience question, go ahead.
Hi, I'm curious about the move from LA to New York. I myself am from New York and moved to LA and then got a job in New York, moved back, and then moved back to LA. So I'm wondering, well, I mean, did you move the whole crew to, how did you all do that? And what did you go through in doing that?
It was difficult. I mean, we shot the pilot in New York. We had planned for the show to shoot in New York, and then the studio said it's too expensive, you gotta shoot in LA. And then they passed this tax credit, and the opportunity came to go to New York. And I think, look, even for the people that moved, that were disappointed that we moved we're shooting in LA, people had a life that they were building. And so when we moved to New York, as great as it was tough. It was tough, and
We also left behind like an amazing crew in LA that we were really, really devoted to, and I think that was something that transition was hard. I mean, because our crew in LA were with the whole jump, and we had these incredible meals when Papi cooked, and we all ate. Like during the scenes, we just ate and ate and ate. But then when we got to New York, and the New York crew was amazing. We all got there, but they would just like open a can of beans and plop it in a bowl, and they'd be like, rolling. I was like, no, we eat.
We got spoiled.
Yeah. So that was difficult, but it worked.
And then we gained back amazing things like Pat Field,
Exactly.
and we gained back New York City as a backdrop, and a lot of us were New Yorkers to begin with, so we were thrilled to go back. But we did leave our crew behind, and the writers stayed in LA, and that was a hard transition.
There was a disconnect, and it was tough at times. If knowing now what I knew, knowing what I know now, I don't know. I mean, it was, again, as America says, there were so many things we gained from it, but just getting a show off the ground, and God, there are so many things that people aren't aware of. You're just watching the finished product, but getting a crew of 200 plus people to all jive and work together, because not everyone's going to work out. There's going to be changes, and so getting that machine to operate smoothly, and we finally got there by.
Then we had the writer's strike right in between in LA, the writer's strike. So
yeah, exactly. And then when we upped and moved, there was a step backwards. It was a starting over, and again, a lot of it was just mechanics and making sure that there were people that it was a trial and error, and I don't know.
I remember the mode set did not fit into our shooting stages, so we shot nothing but Juarez stuff for the first 2 weeks, and it wasn't ready. And then remember that? We just kept shooting Juarez stuff. We were used to that. So it was like, and then 2 weeks later it was all mode. And we just took a vacation for 2 weeks.
Who gets to decide where the reboot is filmed?
New York.
New York.
Hulu. Hulu gets to decide. We'll shoot wherever Hulu wants us to shoot.
What is that? What is the hashtag again, Mary?
Hashtag Hulu bring back what is it? Bring back Ugly Betty. Hashtag Hulu bring back Ugly Betty.
No better way to end it. Get it trending, people. I want to thank ATX. I want to thank Entertainment Weekly for partnering on this, and I want to thank the creator and the cast of Ugly Betty.